Ilaiyaraaja came in and he could write full-on sections, and therefore suddenly the quality of the background score started going up in South Indian cinema.
चंदा रे कभी तो समीप पर आ
Ting tada ting tada ting tada ting tang tadan tang tang tada tang tang tan 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 tang 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 tang. I said, damn it, I asked you, and we went and trotted dialogue, we have to do it. Bang bang. He's the richest musician in India and he says others are rich. He's ready to do anything for a film. He's not only a music lover, he's a film lover.
Tracking milestones of an incredible journey spanning more than 3 decades, Rahman Music Sheets. Hi friends, discover the top take as we uncover the wow factor in this episode. Do watch it till the end to grab this musical moment of the day. AVM, the iconic production house that launched mega stars like Sivaji Ganesan and Kamal Haasan, decided to make Minsara Kanavu for its 50th anniversary celebrations. Partially inspired by 1965 American musical Sound of Music. The film had music as its USP, so Rahman became an obvious choice. Kajol's debut film in Tamil, Minsara Kanavu, is also the first feature film directed by Rajiv Menon.
Years later, I mean, when you see something like La La Land succeed, and there's a famous meme of the La La Land dance with Chanda Re Chanda tune put on it, and it just synchronizes absolutely perfectly, the dance with that.
तुझको आते इधर लाज आए अगर ओढ़ के आजा तू बादल गने.
We were actually trying a lot of the Broadway musical ideas way before it was done, in whether it's Strawberry Kanne.
Strawberry Kanne, Vinveli Penne,
whether it was Ooh La La La. Or whether it was Chanda Re Chanda.
Chanda Re, kabhi to sami par aa.
Most of these situations were inspired by what I had seen in Babar of Seville as a musical opera. We had seen Sing American in Paris, the video. So, Gene Kelly's dance. So a lot of these ideas which were there in Hollywood musicals, we wanted to bring that into film, and that's what we did. We had seen Sound of Music together a couple of times. So this nun and all this singing in the fields and all that. So it is a film which is virtually shot completely in the studio, like the old studio setup. And there are very few places that you go out of the studio. And it's some kind of a fantasy, space. And the music was really remarkable. He won his second national award for that. The idea of creating an album which had all different kinds of songs, it was complete musically, was again something we were looking at. And we were looking for a much more youthful, much more aggressive kind of a tune. So, and all the songs have sort of remained chartbusters even now. And it has that little bit of that music group which is trying to succeed inside it. And that element from Sound of Music of a nun wanting to come into music and discovering the joy of life. We were influenced by 4 Weddings and a Funeral. We were inspired by various kind of modernist love stories and the traditional Broadway musical. So Rahman and I would jam, and each tune would take a month or so to get done, because it wasn't like you talk about it and then say, okay, let's go off somewhere. So we would go to a forest in Tekadi and sit and create a jam. We'd go to Cochin, and, So those days you didn't recreate the tune completely in the studio. You would just go off somewhere and spend 2 or 3 days roaming around. And then you would jam together, and he would sit and work for some time, then sleep and sing. Then in the evening you would listen to the musical ideas, and if something catches you, then he would work further. And sometimes he'll say, no, okay, let's sack all this, let's try again next day. So it was like 2 or 3 days of jamming, and then you start working with the lyrics, and then, it will take probably a month to finish a song. That kind of time and space you added, and he would do everything. He would play the background score, he would play the bass guitar, he would play this, he would play that, and then record the thing, and with Sridhar he would mix it, and it was like Sridhar, Rahman, and that was his musical sounding board, so it was really, really fantastic doing those tracks.
Mr. Menon, before we started this interview, we had a chat, and you mentioned that Mr. Rahman allows a tune to happen, and that irritates songwriters. How and why?
Absolutely, because what was happening in commercial cinema before is that you went to a kind of a hotel, and people, the lyric writer sat and the music director sat, and there was a jam, and the tune was finished in half a day. Or tune was finished in 2 hours, and then let's do the next tune. So in like one session they would do 6 tunes. So in some ways it's very difficult for that tune to be completely different from what is happening. There is a template in the tune and you're following it. Rahman said, why should I do that? So first thing he did is he stopped jamming with the lyric writer, and he said, I'll make the tune, and then I'll give it to you, you write the lyrics, and we'll rephrase it after that. So this used to irritate the lyric writers no end. But what he was doing is, he was first trying to make a groove with the rhythm and bass and the thing, and then once he got a groove which he found that was different, he was listening to it and just letting some thoughts happen. And then it works, okay. Then try a next groove and let some thoughts flow, works, not there. So a typical composing session of Rahman will have something like 8 grooves. He'll say, okay, if you find anything interesting, you say it. So if you say that you find this interesting, then he would edit it and structure a tune and then add some fillers. And that's what would go to the lyric writer. So everybody was waiting for this cassette to come. It can be frustrating sometimes for lyric writers, and for lyric writers with great egos who were like saying that, listen, we have to do it together. Rahman wasn't doing it together, because he says, why should I do that? I'm just letting the tune happen. It may happen today, it may happen tomorrow, it may happen day after tomorrow. I don't want the senior person to come and scream and shout at me, So I want to be under pressure. I want it to be the best possible thing that we could come up with. And I think that letting things happen and not let's finish it in 2 hours, because after all, films do survive for some time, but the music outlives that. It becomes part of the cultural zeitgeist of our time. And I think you need to give a lot more importance to the way music is created, rather than seeing it as a functional tool in a film. And he was able to make his songs survive beyond his films, beyond the tenure of the film or the relevance of that story.
Prabhu Deva, India's response to Michael Jackson. World press called him boneless dancer from India. Minsara Kanavu pulled him out of his comfort zone.
விளையாட ஜோடி தேவை.
We had 3 composers working on that film, choreographers. We had Saroj Khan, we had Farah Khan, and because, I didn't want all the songs to look like what Prabhu Deva were doing in this. But Prabhu is like Rahman, is a instinctive choreographer. This particular song, since that visual of the bridge and these two people meeting, and we had created this set, we were in some ways inspired by American in Paris of Gene Kelly. Watching that. So there were moments where you have this kind of fluidity of Gene Kelly. And there was a very distinct Middle Eastern kind of a rhythm and a bulbul tara kind of a instrument backing it. So it was having this staccato kind of ting ta da ting ta da ting ta da ting tong ta dun tong ta tong ta da tong tong tan 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 tong 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 tong. So the rhythm was actually coming in, which was like a Arabic kind of a song, and the tune was in Dharmavati Rag. So it was ta ra ra ri ra 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 ri ra ri ra 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 ri ra 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 ri ri ra. It was, when I heard it the first time, I said, wow, this tune is so good. It's like brilliant. He had done some 3 or 4 bits, and so we immediately decided to use one of those bits for the BGM, and the song was locked. It was completely finished in the first composing session. I think it was in Malabar, Taj Malabar, that we had composed that song. And then it was about, when we were recording, it was how can you hit that higher ta ra 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 dee da 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 dee da, to how to get to that note. So the ladies couldn't reach that, so they sang 1 octave lower. And Hariharan really managed to reach that highest point, and the song just explodes in that thing. And there was also the point where he's declaring his love. So the male singing at that high pitch really worked. And we stopped the song halfway in between, and it restarts, and the audience goes berserk in the theatre when that happens.
I believe the song Strawberry wasn't there. It was just a longish music piece, but it turned out to be so good that you decided to go for a complete song.
So what we thought is that, normally, there's a guy and a girl will meet, and when a guy and a girl meet, they'll say, oh, wow, this girl is so beautiful. But he's a hairstylist, so he's going to say that her hair is not nice. So that's what a hairstylist will say. Your hairstyle should be correct. But that will be so obvious. But so we thought, we have Kajol, and what if she tells that her nose is so big? Then she says, what if she says that, your hair is like spring moody? It's like 2 people abusing each other when they first meet. And then what will happen? Now, the hero-heroine are meeting and they are abusing each other. But they are abusing each other not with words, but musically. It's a fight, a musical fight. So the ram pararara ram pararara ram pararara ram, the tam pararara ram pararara ram pararara ram. These are all things that you hear in Walt Disney kind of, fights between Tom and Jerry and all that kind of thing. So we were taking elements from that and using it into this. And then there was this big signature singing. So this is like completely different inspirations that we were drawing from.
The film won 4 national awards. Prabhu Deva for choreography, S.P. Balasubramaniam and K.S. Chitra as best playback singers, and AR Rahman for music. The film was simultaneously made in Hindi as Sapne. In 1997, a whopping amount of rupees 2 crore was paid by HMV, now known as Saregama, to acquire rights to the Hindi soundtrack.
The entire film's budget, I think, at that time was like 6.5-7 crores or whatever it is, and it was a huge price. And one of the things we had to do is that we knew we were going to make a Hindi version, and I didn't want a dubbing thing, so I wanted Javed Sahib to come and write the lyrics. So we recorded both tracks, and we would shoot the film lip sync in both languages so that the songs actually sounded better. Not that their lips is moving something and some other words is being put there. And I felt that was very important. Musically, the film was really important. The film did much better in Tamil than it did in Hindi. But for Saregama, it was a very important film. And of course, Rahman went on to win the National Award and 4 other national awards for the film. And it was kind of a cult classic. It ran for some 175 days in Chennai. And, it was... and Ooh La La La, the song, was used in Bombay Dreams and things like that. So it had a kind of a... what can I say? A kind of a boisterous happiness. We were now looking for musical depth and stronger melodies in Kandukondein. So every time you look for something new.
Kandukondein Kandukondain, the second film directed by Rajiv Menon, featuring a dream cast: Aishwarya Rai, Tabu, Mammootty, Ajith Kumar and Abbas. Shankar Mahadevan won his first national award as playback singer. The film is based on Sense and Sensibility, published in 1811, the first novel by English author Jane Austen. In 1995, Columbia Pictures produced it for screen. It won an Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay.
From Jane Austen's timeless classic.
There's some blue sky, let us chase it!
If Sense and Sensibility was about English upper crust morality, Kandukondein Kandukondain focuses on Brahmin anxieties in Tamil society. The challenge was to adapt English characters and make them captivating for Indian setup and audiences.
Do you want to make Jane Austen's thing? People are drinking tea and speaking like that. How is that going to work?
எடுத்துக்கங்க.
அம்மா உங்கள் பொண்ணுங்கெல்லாம் எங்கள் வீட்டுக்கு கொலுவில் வந்து பாடினா எங்களுக்கு ஒரு கௌரவமாக இருக்கும். அது மட்டும் இல்லாமல் இந்த டாலரும் பவுன்ஸுமா சம்பாதிக்கிற பசங்கள்லாம் வருவாங்க.
No, they're not going to work. They're going to actually fight it out and things. So, and I did the narration. He said, hey, this is moving, man. This is really moving. So, we can do something completely different with the music. And therefore, we said, let's work. We are done with Western music and a young, peppy thing. So, now let's do with Indian rags. So, we were completely going into the other side because it is about women and it's about falling in love. We wanted to have one ballad which was like, we going to be shot in Scotland, so we had a completely Carnatic raga. So we didn't want to use a Scottish kind of tune for that. So there was this one rag that we wanted to do, and we had actually done a brew commercial together. Ta da ta da dum ta 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 da ta da ta da da ta dum. It was on a brew track, and it was Natakunji.
Super coffee. Really?
And we had jammed together because it was an afternoon wedding discussion, and in afternoon weddings, in Tambram weddings, they play Natakunji. So, and I had worked in that commercial. So we said we can do it. And Rahman said, yeah, sure, let's do it. We'll do that. And I went and shot a scene where the Mammootty is telling Aishwarya Rai that Natakunji and this thing is good.
மறக்கப்படுறது பாட்டு நல்லா இருந்துச்சு. நாட்டக்குறிஞ்சிலிருந்து ஷஹானாவுக்கு மாறுறது ரொம்ப கிளாஸ்.
And when we are doing the music, this tune is not coming. And he's saying, I'm telling you, this tune is not going to work. We're going to work. I said, damn it, I asked you. And we went and trod a dialogue. We have to do it. He said, you're pretty boring me with this. So then we would just go, and for 1 month, I used to go with every night, listen to this Natakunji, listen to this Natakunji. And I wasn't working. And then finally, there was one recording of one 1950s film where there was one song in Natakunji. And he heard it and he said, is it an oboe or a clarinet? And he's hearing something else, not the tune, he's hearing something else. And then suddenly he turns back and he starts playing. He starts playing jazz and he's making it. He started playing and he started playing aggressively. And then after he had played that for 3 minutes, boom, the tune came. So it's like 1 month of listening to Natakunji Rag, and then one day the new one has come. Because otherwise you will get a conventional tune which is like the other classical pieces. The important thing when you use classical music is the bandish shouldn't look like the popular bandish. You have to try doing something new. But you must have the feeling of the rag, but it should not sound familiar. So this is what he's struggling with. And if he may not explain this to you, but you have to understand that working with Rahman is like you have to believe in your heart that he loves you. Because he's going to take so much time that your schedules are going to go tearing apart and things like that. But he's just trying his best, and he doesn't know when it's going to work, but he's trying. And I think that's what makes working with Rahman a completely different experience.
Mr. Menon, I'm very curious. How did Mr. Rahman adapt to the style of Hollywood? Because they have watertight schedules and timelines. It must have been quite a challenge for him as well as for the producers.
I guess the way the Indian film industry works and the way tunes are created in India is, our films are, half written and we go into shooting, and then you see the visuals and you create the background score, or you see the visuals and then create the songs. So it's a lot more improvisational. Whereas when you go to the West, you're going to be given the script, and based on the script, you're going to sit and make music, and the music is in score sheets, and then you're going to go and do it. So I think that system is a little different in Hollywood from what it is in India. If Rahman went to Hollywood and they gave him a script and he read the script and says, okay, I'm going to create 6 music bits like this, I don't know whether his mind functions in that way. His mind may function with, let me see the visual and then I will create a track. And when people are so planned that, you're going to be 2 years ahead, you're going to be shooting, and you want the background score 6 months before you shoot, or whatever it is, that may be slightly difficult. It's not that he can lock himself up in a room and just sort of write score sheets. It's not him. I think as a child, because he worked in these recording studios with 40, 50 musicians sitting together reacting to a visual, it was intrinsic in him to react that way. But at the same time, you give your film with a lot of love and affection and you expect AR to watch the whole film. That's not going to happen. He'll watch first half and say, okay, now I've got some tune, I'm going to start working. So he says, don't you want to see the balance film? I'll see it. And so basically his attention is that of that reel, of that 10 minutes. And that 10 minutes wants him to, if he's getting some idea. Okay, but not get this idea, now let's go to the next thing. So he doesn't even score music as, okay, I'll do reel 1, reel 2, reel 3. No. He'll be watching reel 1, reel 2, reel 3 and suddenly say, okay, put that reel number 6. And let's start with that midpoint. Somewhere he'll start thinking. And it doesn't work, he doesn't mind. He leaves it and then, starts again. And as a result, there's a lot of spontaneity and there's a lot of unpredictability in his music. And so, whether it is for somebody like Shekhar Kapoor to work with him.
By God, England will not fall while I am Queen.
Danny Boyle to work with him on things. What they notice is, here is this man who's ready to do something completely unexpected and then lift a sort of scene. Because you imagine some kind of stock music and it's something else that's going to come in. Initially he was used to scoring reel-wise. So a film was divided into below 10 minutes in the conventional recording studio system when he was working. So he scores for reels and then he kind of, puts it all together.
Be it Maya Maya from Guru or Chaiya Chaiya from Dil Se or Hamma Hamma from Bombay. Short, catchy phrases have remained a signature of Rahman's songs. Kandukondein Kandukondain was not an exception.
The character of Tabu was always sad and she doesn't smile. The hero, when he's, singing to her, he just wants her to smile. He's shooting the film with an actress, but he's actually thinking of his love interest. And she's always sad. So what if she smiles? So smile. We kept on saying smile. So smile. So he's got this habit of doing all this gibberish and he will sing while he composes. So it was some gibberish that he sang like that while he was composing the tune, and the gibberish was so good that we couldn't change it. Sandana tendralai jannalgal dandithal nyayama. That was originally, he had composed it like Sanjane avore, Sanjane avore, avore. So somewhere he's heard some folk song, some place, and he's using some words while he's composing. And sometimes it's gibberish, sometimes it is some words. Song shot in Egypt, and then it wasn't planned to be shot in Egypt. We wanted to just shoot in Rajasthan, but ended up we could never find a railway track in the middle of the sand, where we wanted to. Every song was a 2-month struggle. It wasn't like happening, so we were like working hard and trying to say that it will work. And his composing process is not open. It's a spiritual space where he's locked in a room, he's praying, and he's hoping for a pure new thought. And that is what, and that's what's now really difficult, because Rahman is so busy, and to get 2 months to work on one song is not going to happen, because he's got to do 10 films now and deliver 60 songs, so it's like really difficult. That intimate way of working, and where every instrument, everything which is getting recorded, you and Rahman are doing it together, and you're like debating on it, and then saying that maybe this is too much, and then the contribution of Sridhar and saying, okay, let's remove this, and let's clean it up, and let's make it lighter and cleaner. It was also the period where music was really important in Indian films. Now music is an add-on. It's like very few films are sold only for the music. Music films are sold for the experience, the visual experience of the story, but not necessarily for the music. But people would just go to see a film because the songs were good. I mean not that, but the story also had to be good. But I think the importance of songs in the Indian film narrative has reduced. And it's sad, because that was something which is very uniquely Indian. It's very much part of our Indian culture. It's part from our Bhagavata Mela and all of that, where our narrative traditions come from. And it is a narrative of interruptions. But the interruptions are very beautiful, and they have rhythm and melody, and they are something that you enjoy. Even a sad song you enjoy.
Many feel that the songs of Mr. Rahman do not connect with audiences the way they were doing in the past. Is there something that has changed in his music? Or is it the way music is consumed today? More than 1 lakh songs get released every day, and rarely that you see a chartbuster.
I think it's difficult to say, because I think the way people perceive melody is different, So, it's not that Rahman has musically lost the battle to a superior melody or something like that. It's just that the kind of music and the kind of clutter that is there, there's not that one film that you were waiting for, that one audio to release and everybody's waiting for it. And now you don't go and buy the CD, you don't get everything is accessible. So music and musicians are not the superstars that they were. And there's no that kind of wow factor and that, wow, this is absolutely divine, this chord. There's no more superstars. It's like watching the IPL. There's many players. Every day is a tamasha. So I think Rahman will probably do more independent music. That's why he's exploring direction, and that's why he's exploring VR or other aspects of his creative personality, rather than just doing another film song, which would be a hit.
Released in 2019, Sarvam Thaala Mayam was the third film directed by Rajiv Menon. after his second film, Kandukondein Kandukondain in 2000. It took Menon 19 years to return to direction.
According to Mr. Rahman, you make less number of films. You are very rich.
This is a pot calling the kettle dark. He's the richest musician in India and he says others are rich. No, I mean, this says that I wish you were poorer, you would be forced to make films every other year. You pontificate too much. He says, you must make more films, I want to make more music. And, he loves it when we guys are sitting and fighting and arguing and, going crazy about some crazy ragas and some musical ref here and debating on whether to use a viola or a cello, and we discussed that kind of from instruments to rhythm to everything, and he's I don't think anybody will tolerate that much musical interaction as much as Rahman does.
The lead character in the film is played by G.V. Prakash Kumar. He is the only son of Rahman's elder sister Rehana. As a child, he sang for many Rahman films like Gentleman and Bombay. G.V. Prakash grew up to become a celebrated singer, actor and composer. When Rajiv Menon approached him for acting in Sarvam Thaala Mayam, G.V. Prakash had already composed music for more than 50 films in multiple languages, including background score for Anurag Kashyap's Gangs of Wasipur. Sarvam Thaala Mayam offered him a lifetime opportunity. Role of a mridangam player exploring beats and sounds across India.
Thematically, the film is rhythm-based, which is a core strength of Mr. Rahman also. If he wasn't there, would you have planned such a film?
This is one case in a film where I could tell him the whole story. And I told him I don't have an actor, I don't know who's going to act, I don't know any producer. And I'm just telling you the story, and this is the story. And he used to keep telling me, why aren't you making films? Why aren't you making films? And he used to call me and say, what are you, people like you must make films, only then I can make music. Every 2-3 years he will call me and tell me, why aren't you making a film? Why aren't you making a film? And when I told him this story, he had tears in the end. And he said, it doesn't matter who's acting in this film, it doesn't matter who's producing it. You just produce it, I'll do the music. This film has to come out. This is required for music, and that's it. And he believed in it and he stood by it, And I think it was in some ways his own journey, as what was it to break into music and what is it to have a guru and what is it to struggle and where you're born and what you reach and what you achieve. Those kind of elements in the music is there. So I think with the kind of bond that I and Rahman share is sort of unique, because I had this sort of tune in my head that I was really worried if I go and tell him what's going to happen. And one day I said, I've got this tune. And he looked at me like, what? I have this tune, like this is the situation. So then sing. He has won an Oscar. He's right on top of his game. And I'm coming with a tune. And I can end up breaking my relationship because I've told him I have a tune. He listens to it and he says, okay, sing it again. And then he starts saying, dum, 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 dum. He starts playing thing and he says, let's just have one kanjira and let's record it. he's musically open for that. I don't think any other human being will accept it. They'll just tell you, just get out. I know what I'm doing. But he's not like that.
Sir, good night, good night, good night.
A riveting musical drama, Sarvam Thaala Mayam is centered around a young Dalit musician facing discrimination due to his caste. The film underlines the politics of caste in Carnatic music. It also presents a glimmer of hope that can be found in the ethos of Carnatic music itself.
Mr. Menon, the film captures the beats and sounds of India, celebrates its diversity, and focuses on the politics of Carnatic music also. But its soundtrack must have been a real challenge, as before shoot you need a reference sound, but on location you always will have surprises waiting for you. So how this entire soundtrack came about?
That's exactly what I'm saying. He's musically that way very modest. He's let's see what will happen kind of a thing. So he had this track which was Sarvam Thaala Mayam, but none of those instruments were scored there, and he said, do one thing, when you're going there, you just take a record and just record the track and just record the instrument on the rhythm. I will pace it and I'll try to fit it. So we would play the track for the folk musicians, and then we'll shut it and say, now you guys play something like this. So they would play it and then we would record it. We bought those things back and then Rahman put them back into the film. So when you see the film, you don't know whether the song is like a documentary because some of the rhythm is coming from there and because some of the rhythm cannot be created inside the studio. And that's what I'm saying. The collaborative quality of Rahman is such that he is ready to do anything for the film. So his process of collaboration is such that I've done this music. Now, how are you going to bring that stuff and bring it here? Bring those musicians here to my studio? No. You record it, I'll try to integrate it. That is... so there is that experimentative, edgy person, and he's ready to do music even for an experimental film. It's not just big budget film that he's looking. So in his heart of heart, he's an indie filmmaker. And so when he's trying to direct also, when he's trying to do mask or he's trying to do something, he doesn't want to do something conventional. Whether it's success or not, he's going to try experimenting every time. And that's very admirable.
You have known Mr. Rahman for more than 35 years. How do you think he has evolved as a person?
I mean, he was very shy, he barely spoke, he was a man of small words. Right now he writes long emails, he talks very well, and he gives a lot of interviews, and he's very well spoken. As a human being, I think he was deeply attached to his mother, and that loss is hurting. He runs an institution. He's probably done more for Western music in India than anybody else has done, by turning a music school. And it's not something that is making a lot of money, but he just believes that we don't have a place to learn Western classical music, and he has taught so many people out of that place. Similarly, he has raised the bar of a musician performing with the kind of scale of his productions. And then he's experimenting and saying, I want to try VR or I want to produce a film. So I think Rahman is the young boy who was playing with a few keyboards and just having some fun, is now become an institution, and he's also become a pop icon. And he sometimes, he and I go for these shows in his things, and he says, God, I wish I become a student here. I don't know so many things. Like, he's always, honest and candid about whatever it is, never pretending to be this genius who sort of walked out from nowhere. He attributes so much of his success to the divine. It's just like saying that it's not me, it's some force that came in and made me do it. And I think that's a way of looking at the whole process of making music and not owning it. I mean, it just happens, and then it's a hit, well, it's lucky, but it's not. Just the process of music happening itself is some kind of a divine occurrence, and I think that's what makes Rahman very unique in India and in Indian film music.
Now I'm going to pose a challenge to you. Please select one Tamil song and one Hindi song which you think are unique.
I think it's great tunes which are like unique, which I feel didn't exist before. That tune never existed before him. Like, there was no song which absolutely existed like that before. Is probably Tu Hi Re. I mean, that is so unique. Tu hi re, tere bina main kaise jiyon. आजा रे, यूं ही तड़पाना तू मुझको, जाने रे, इन सांसों में बस जा तू. That, the way that sea is, the way the storm is, the way the thing is, something in that tune and something in the way, it's something magical, that song. It is unique in some ways. In Tamil, I really like his his happy songs are so many, but I'm a sucker for melody, and again, it's a kind of melody which is completely different from what he's done, but I think Vennilave, Vennilave, Vinnai Taandi Varuvaya, Vilayada Jodi Thevai. இந்த பூலோகத்தில் யாவும் பார்க்கும் முன்னே உன்னை அதிகாலை அனுப்பி வைப்போம். வெண்ணிலவே வெண்ணிலவே விண்ணை தாண்டி வருவாயா, விளையாட ஜோடி தேவை. There's something, so tender, so childlike and so deep and so night, something unique in these tunes.
Rajiv Menon and Rahman. Their relationship goes beyond cinema. Rajiv witnessed Rahman evolve. Be it his adamant search for a new sound, or touching divine chords through his music, or finding sunshine in a different faith, Rajiv was right next to Rahman.
Mr. Menon, when he was trying to get this new sound, you were there. Can you tell us what was he searching for and how he reached there?
I think he didn't want a cluttered track because, there was some idea that, there was this film which was happening in a village in Tamil Nadu. And then there was this really mountains and the mountain air and everything being clear. So there were these two things. So his tracks had a lot of space and it was very basic kind of instrumentalization and the melody was coming through very clearly. And the typical way of creating an Antara Mukada was not what he was trying. He was trying something completely different. Like different musical forms so there is a bit of Tamil folk, there is a bit of classicalism, there is a bit of chorus, and there is reggae, and there is a rock ballad. So a lot of different styles which were there was coming into him. He used to tell me that in some of these Qawwali songs, they won't start with the main hook line. They will start somewhere else and then suddenly the beat will come in and then the clapping will start. So why is it that you should put the most beautiful aspect of your song right in the beginning? It can come a little later. So these kind of thoughts was what he was recognizing in music and then, bringing that together. I think a huge influence was listening to Nusrat Fateh Ali and, that entire exposure to Qawwali music that was happening. And on the other side, he was listening to Balkan music, Bulgarian music and, all that aspect of the Adriatic Sea something. And he was saying that there's so much music it's just not Arabic music, it's music from Morocco. And then he was listening to African music. And most importantly, he was watching a lot of films. He was watching Iranian films, he was watching this. So he would go on these trips and then he would buy a whole lot of DVDs and come. And then he had some of the most interesting experimental DVDs. So myself and Mani would get them and we would see it. And they're saying, how did this guy pick it up? How does he know like Cuba and all that? Like really experimental films shot in Cuba by a Russian filmmaker, he would get the DVD. So I said, how did you know it? Did you know about it? Did you read about it? He said, no boss, I just go to a DVD store and I look at all the things. If there are nice looking title, no. If it's slightly different, I'll buy it. If it is not interesting, I'll throw it. I'll just buy it. So it was this kind of approach that let's walk into the HMV showroom in Oxford Street and just buy all the DVDs that are there, which I like, and let's share it with my friends. What differentiates AR from other musicians is that he's not only a music lover, he's a film lover. He enjoys good cinema, Iranian, Chinese, you name it, he's always watching it. And he's not a great fan of just the Hollywood stuff. He was always interested in the indie cinema, and he was always interested in different things. So I think also because his groundwork, his basic work of his musical training was doing background scores for commercial Indian cinema. So he had a very strong understanding of how mechanized is the way people look at background scores. I mean, just say, okay, when a heroine smiles, you put a sitar, and when the person dies, you play a shehnai, and then there is drum rolls for fights. He said, this is really stupid. Why can't you have a different music from that? So, he had these thoughts as a youngster, 15, 16-year-old, playing in these big groups with all these old established men. And background scores are an anonymous art. Nobody knows who makes them. And suddenly here was this man who was making music and becoming a star, and he was being recognized for it. So he managed to, pull that off. Here was a man who wasn't ready to buy into any of the formulas that were there in the Indian film scoring techniques, and he was completely breaking free out of it. And because he was young and he was fearless and he was working with young young filmmakers, he could get away with it. And once it was successful, then the industry started accepting it. But what made him different is he was not just a tunesmith making songs. He had taken the responsibility of conveying the emotions of the entire film. He wasn't composing for 3 minutes. He was composing for 1.5 hours or 2.5 hours. He was taking on a 150-minute film and saying, all the music in this has to be exciting. And therefore people just started listening to his music, just for the background score, and clips started getting circulated, and what was great is his appreciation that the musicians were doing to his music, and the contribution of the flutist and cornet. For the first time in India, the record cover started saying flute by Naveen, bass by Carl Peter. So you started having instrumentalist names, which was never there in Indian films. It was music director, lyric writer, and a singer, as though nobody else existed. But Rahman bought those background artists who were working day and night, their names on, and they were completely devoted to him in that process. Here was a person who was experimenting, who was young, who was asking them to bring it, and he was using these various instruments in a different manner, and not using it the way the film industry was using it, and trying to find a different sound and also communicate the entire emotion of the film. Rather than scoring for one little shot, he was scoring for the emotion of the scene. That's what made Rahman so unique. So by the time he comes to films like Rang De Basanti and things, so he's ready to collaborate with Sikh music, he's ready to collaborate with Daler Mehndi, or he's ready to collaborate with all kind of musicians all over India, So therefore, he was open and welcoming all kind of musicians into his studio, and he enjoyed that process.
His devotional songs have been timeless. Do you think there is some kind of a magic when the song is about faith and spirituality?
Big chartbusters in Jodha Akbar and his Maula song, and there are so many of these kind of songs which are unique and they are so subtle. And then there are these whispery melodies that I call, Dhimi dhimi, dhimi dhimi, खुशबू है तेरा बदन. It's like a whisper. So it's like as though it's being composed for a very whispery kind of a flute. So he has these, it's not that everything is going at that big, loud ballad, you know. And that's what makes it that when you compose a tune, there is a certain volume in which you're going to do it, and there's a kind of singer which can correctly produce it. And then there are songs which is not crooning, which is really loud, and then there's rawness of the folk. So I think that's what helps him. And he loves traveling, and he loves listening to different kinds of music, and so he's very open musically.
Mr. Menon, now in films, you have different composers for songs and for background score. Barring few exceptions, Mr. Rahman does the entire score for the film. What do you say to that?
I think Rahman belongs in that sense to the earlier school of filmmaking, where he felt he has to take ownership of the music. Right now, people feel that I'm hired just to give a hit song. And so in one film, you can have 3 different hit songs bought from different places and just placed into the film. And background score is different. But all that is part of the musical creation, and that's what Rahman feels. And he's probably last of the really big music directors who are controlling the entire music in a film. So there is a certain sense of authorship that you're controlling. And I think he's deeply interested in the storytelling process in films. So he's not just here to make songs. Indian cinema for years has been, music directors were people who did great songs. I mean, it was seen as a song creator. So whether it is Naushad ji or whether it is Sachin Dev Burman,
ये दुनिया अगर मिल भी जाए तो क्या है?
They were basically known for that. It was only in Satyajit Ray's films that, you know, one started noticing, oh, there's a background score and there's no song, but there is Ravi Shankar doing music for Patir Panchali. So what is he doing in that? Oh, okay, then what is Jalsagar? When Mr. Ray himself started doing the music, then things sort of started really climbing in quality. The song is Indian music, it is based on rags, and background score is essentially Western. So when they wanted emotion, they were not fully in the Western space, but they would immediately hark back to an Indian instrument. So it was one kind of khichdi. They did not know how to bring the emotion in Western classical music. So it was some kind of a, just get somebody else to do it kind of a thing. So it was about calling some musicians, some Anglo-Indians will play the drums and some instruments, the Western instruments, some sitarists and all that will come, some flutists will come, and an oddball combination will come together and they'll create some sound. It was like that. It wasn't that there was a composer sitting and writing a score sheet and getting it done. A lot of musicians who wrote the tune in Saregama Padanisa could not write the scales that were required for the string section and all that. That changed when Mr. Ilayaraja came in and he could write full-on sections. And And therefore, suddenly the quality of the background score started going up in South Indian cinema. Rahman's father had worked in that space and he was aware of the fact that Western classical knowledge is required further. So he had already put him down into training with the same teacher who had taught Western classical music to Ilayaraja sir. He was sent as an understudy to him as a youngster. So the knowledge of Western classical music was already, the importance was given to him by his father for surviving in the industry. He was aware of it. And when he came in here, he knew that, it is not actually just trying to do music for that shot. It's actually creating, it's like a song. You're creating something for some 2 minutes, 3 minutes. You may only use 1.5 minutes. So what was happening with Mr. Raja and all of that, they would say, okay, this is the point and there's this point. So this kind of scoring is actually to lift something which has already been shot. So it's like an addition, but that doesn't become a background theme music. Background theme music is music, but which doesn't have an antara mukada, kind of a structure of a song, but has a kind of a symphonic structure where there is a kind of a yearning emotion which is there. That Rahman caught on to. And his best musical score, which made him really famous worldwide, was Bombay. And Bombay, the idea was not about the city burning, but it was about the longing between the mother and child. So it was a completely different way of looking at it. Even when he was having these kind of thoughts of, let's look at a completely different way of looking at a song, you traditionally had this sexy song in Indian film where there was a heroine who like a cabaret song. And when you came to a song like in Rangila where Hey Rama ye kya hua hai aise hame satane lage. This is so musically complex and longing that you don't expect it for a sexy song, and then the way the strings are coming in and the kind of combination between a bhajan and a Western classical clash. So he was doing these kind of strange things. Then he had experimented with, in Mani's film Tirda Tirda, where Rasati Yamasuk Manakule Niponal Tedi Varadari. There was no rhythm.
When the family decided to move to other faith, you were somewhere around. We were discussing it yesterday. Would you like to talk about that phase?
Yeah, I mean, there was a period where, they didn't know much of Hindi, and it was a period where there was conversion, and there used to be some fakirs coming from Gulbarga and various places, and sometimes they didn't even know what these people are speaking, and I would sort of be a translator. So I've seen this period of how the family gravitated more towards religion and belief and things like that. And then it is also the period of where there was a lot of pressure within the families, some sisters, marriages, working, not working, and the pressures that were coming in. And Rahman would shut all this pressure off and just say, there's a storm brewing around me, but when I just start playing music, it all just goes away, And if everything is pleasant and fantastic, then I don't want to sit on music. God is giving me these problems so that I can just go and get clarity when I do music, and everything becomes clearer. So I think it's a very different kind of way of thinking that he has, in sublimating himself to the divine.
How did that impact his music? I believe after embracing Sufi Islam, he started learning Hindustani music.
Yeah, I think when he, went in and went through this process of faith and conversion and all that, in some ways he was forgetting what was the past and he was looking at a new world, I think by nature, great musicians, whether it was who break through and try doing something else, are also spiritually in search. I mean, be it somebody who's born a Christian but looking at Hinduism in a different way, or a Hindu looking at Islam. But actually what they're doing is they're altering what is sacred within their space, and what is sacred musically and what is sacred spiritually. And they're breaking free from where they were to look at something new. And I think in the case of Rahman, he just discovered Qawwali and he discovered Hindustani music, and he discovered whole Middle Eastern kind of minor scale and all that kind of stuff, And also the kind of rhythm structures that came in, the clapping and the singing, the energy of singing together, the chorus, I mean, we didn't have that many choral songs, but Qawwali, there's an energy when many people sing together, and there is a kind of, that sing and you feel the power of God. It's not one individual singing. I think that's what makes it different. So, and there's also his ability to concentrate becomes more when the song is within 3 to 5 minutes than it becoming very long. Khayals are too long, so you needed to bring it in with a certain rhythm. So I think rhythm and the melody and its ability to repeat itself and, get it into a higher and higher and a trance and feel that excitement. I think Qawwali's played a very big role in his musical compositions and also the role of the rhythm. And he being a person who could play the keyboard, he was naturally percussive. And because he did jazz, he was very good at going offbeat and, trying the different chords. And so there were different musical influences that come in. He's not typically a rock-based singer or typically a pop kind of a thing. His idioms come from various, it's eclectic, it's very different kind of things that come to him. And I think that process of transition was very important for him because he brought in a new kind of sound and a new kind of melody. Because he composed in Hindustani music and in Qawwali kind of things, his music could go national. It's very difficult if you compose a melody in completely Carnatic music for it to go national. Because Carnatic music was created in South India when the Marathas were ruling. So in Carnatic music, there's a lot of Hindustani rags, but in Hindustani, there's not enough Carnatic rags. So if somebody from the South wants to go and crack North India, you have to compose in North Indian ragas, and then you should know the Qawwali. And that was an impediment for a lot of South Indian musicians before that. And Rahman had captured that his tunes were there, and he was really fascinated by the way people were singing, and not necessarily the ghazal. He was fascinated by the rawness of the way people were singing and the kind of pure kind of devotion that was there in Qawwalis. And he could feel that in the way the Sardar singers were singing or anything. So whenever groups sing, there's a kind of energy that he really likes. What was happening in commercial cinema before is that, you went to a kind of a hotel and people, the lyric writer sat and the music director sat and there was a jam and the tune was finished in half a day. Or tune was finished in 2 hours. And then, let's do the next tune. So in like one session, they would do 6 tunes. So in some ways, it's very difficult for that tune to be completely different from what is happening. There is a template in the tune and you're following it. Rahman said, why should I do that?
Do you agree that this indeed was the moment of the day? Is your choice different? Whatever your mind says, write it in the comments section below. We will be waiting. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, press the bell icon and stay entertained.